Well, hello everyone to today's video, and it's a special video. Our Superintendent of Ships, John Branning, a 22-year Navy vet senior chief, will be retiring over the next 10 days or so, and we wanted to just get him on camera one final time, and I'm going to be doing a little Q&A, probably some organic conversation, and this will be for the benefit of our YouTube subscribers, and then we'll keep it on. We'll keep it in our collections here for future reference and use. So, hello, John. How are you, sir?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Very good.
On the hottest day of the year.
Yes, everybody. You're not going to believe it's about 93 degrees here, probably with the heat index about 97. I might be exaggerating, but there we go. So, but it's
pretty
darn
close.
Hot. Darn hot. All right, John. So yeah, you're going to be retiring in less than 10 days, I think, right?
9 days and a wake up.
9 days and a wake up. I love that. Is that why you've been so grumpy on board lately?
That helps.
Very good. Okay, good. Yeah, so John, you've been here for 16 years, right?
Yes.
Do you remember the first project that you worked on when you were brought on board, or when you came to the park? And you want to tell that story?
Yeah, the first thing I worked on was the Marine Corps compartment. The folks who were here at that point, the superintendent, the chief engineer, and a few others that are no longer here, had already started the project, and so the display cases were already there. We laid down the floor in there, the decking, and I did some of the welding work around some of the hatches and installed some of the bunks. I actually installed all the bunks that are down there that are behind the display cases. And then some of, since I'm an aviation type, an Airedale in the Navy, some of the gear that is down there that the Marines use, because we're all part of the Navy, as the Marines always say, we're a department, the men's department, and but that's the way it is. So some of the displays and some of the uniforms my predecessors didn't know how to put together, and so I had no, that's not the way this goes, you know. And so I helped set that room up, pulled out the displays, set the displays up, put the weapons that are in the display case. I actually made that display case myself. And so that was all part of it.
Right, and that's the Mardet on board the Little Rock,
right? As
opposed to building it in our museum building, right?
Right. There was a local Marine organization that was very full when I started. All those guys have passed away now. In our old museum that doesn't exist anymore, they had basically the whole first floor where they had all their display cases and that kind of thing. And well, that building was given away. It was ultimately torn down to help create what's now considered canal site. So the natural place for the Marine displays were in the Marine Corps compartment. Although a lot of these guys were Guadalcanal folks, so they were on up there, and it made it very difficult for them to get down, so they absolutely loathed it. They wanted something on the main deck, the Admiral's quarters, something else, but that wasn't going to happen.
Just not possible.
Just not. We only have so many square feet.
And that's with the John Basilone, so the big stamp in the weapons compartment there, absolutely, as you said, right?
Right. We actually, in your office, you have a copy of John Basilone's dad's birth certificate to show, yes, he's although he joined the Marine Corps, Medal of Honor winner, died at Iwo Jima after winning the Medal of Honor on Guadalcanal. Although he joined the Marine Corps in New Jersey, Buffalo still takes claim to him.
That's right. We do for a couple of years, you know, that he was born and raised here for a few years. So what brought you to the Naval Park all the way back? Was it 2006?
2006.
2006?
Yep.
So what made you walk through the door, or how did you hear about the ships when you came to Buffalo?
My ex-wife was actually originally from Buffalo, and I had retired from the Navy back in 2000. And I'd worked as a Navy contractor, as a certified Navy welder, and at Pensacola. And after Hurricane Dennis, Ivan, and Katrina, it's time to move inland. And so I looked at moving to Buffalo as a change of duty station, and that's the way I kind of looked at it. And it's dumbfounding to me that I ended up moving here, never thinking in my whole life that I would end up in Buffalo, New York. But once I was here, I really fell in love with this area, this region, the natural wonder and natural beauty of this area. And I've been here for 16 years, and it's still shocking to me because it's gone by so quickly. Where even a 3-year tour in the Navy, those seem to drag. Well, this has flown by, and it's been a real interesting trip, but it also, I have a sense of job satisfaction that I gained here that I never had in the Navy, which might sound wrong in some ways, but as an aircraft mechanic on board an aircraft carrier, you fix an airplane, you launch it off, yay, fixed it, great, everybody high five. And then the plane comes back in an hour and a half and it's broke again. So after months and months and months of doing that, it becomes almost repetitive and production line-ish. And although you're doing one of the most dangerous jobs in the world, you start becoming very complacent doing it. Coming here, as I tell everyone, as I told Shane when we did his interview, you know, this is legacy work. This was a chance for me to give back to the Navy in some small way. So when we do a project on board any of the vessels or all the vessels, we're not doing it for us, we're not doing it for our kids, we're not even doing it for our grandkids. The idea is for your grandkids' grandkids to be able to come here to the Naval Park and know that, you know, your great-granddad had a hand in this. And, you know, you don't see my name around here very, very much at all. But that's not the point. It's not self-grandizement. It's really, again, it sounds corny, but that's how I feel about it.
All right, well, let me correct the record. You do see John Branning's name everywhere on board. All right, you see it on uniforms. You certainly see it in the CPO mess and the CPO berthing.
But you got to look hard for it.
But you got to look hard for it. But let's correct that, right? And I think when you were talking, right, you know, even though being on the flight deck, it's probably thrilling for a while. But then it becomes almost routine and repetitive. You certainly don't have that here at the Naval Park.
No.
I mean, you've been as low as you can go into the Buffalo River, and you've been as high as you can go on Little Rock at the 09 or 010 level, right? Those little platforms. What has been the most satisfying thing? Now, you didn't start off as superintendent of ships.
Oh, no.
Right?
I was just a worker bee.
You were a worker bee, a welder.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I walked in down here. Well, I mean, as far as you can walk down the sidewalk and along the ships, the sidewalk stopped right at the entrance to the Sullivans. All that, everything else was under construction, and all I wanted to do is try to get my foot in the door, if anything. And I thought that this was such a unique perspective and a place of reverence in its own way, that I really felt like if I could get hired, that I could help make a difference here. And like I started to say, you know, I just walked down here on the spur of the moment.
Yeah, did you know that there was even a naval park here in Buffalo at the time?
That I did know. I had come and visited Buffalo while I was on leave several different times. But the park again was in the old location. And even my ex-wife was like, "Do you want to go on board ship?" And I'm like, "No, I really don't, because I've lived on board 4 carriers. You know, why do I want to go on one of these things?" You know. And then ultimately, after I retired and came down here, The previous store manager, Dolores, I walked into our impromptu store, gift shop, and offices which were now where the jet airplanes are inside the yard. And I asked specifically, was there any paying jobs here, or is it all volunteers? And they were like, well, you know, it's kind of toward the end of the season, but yeah, there are paying jobs here. You got to go find the superintendent. And so I went on board and ran into Dick Smith. Dick Smith was a former crew member on board Little Rock. And, well, what do you do? And, well, I'm a certified Navy welder. Oh, welder, huh? And we had actually had what's commonly known as the October surprise, where we got like 2.5 feet of snow overnight. And the whole fantail, everything that we have, the canvas on the top, had crashed down.
So you were mentioning it was right around the time of the October storm, what I call the Arbor Day Massacre, because that was when all the trees
destroyed
crumbled.
all the trees.
Yeah, and that was your first week here, did you say? I'm sorry.
I had just moved in and was closing on my house, and I had some time to kill because, of course, New York State makes buying a house, they take all the fun and joy out of it. You got to go to county hall and in the cattle call, and everybody's sitting with lawyers and stuff. That's crazy. But I had some time to kill, so I just walked down here. And like I say, walked in and asked. So when Dick Smith, he grabbed me kind of by the arm and went up to the fantail, and he says, "Welder, huh, can you fix all this?" And all the stanchions had been torn down and all of it. And I was like, "Yeah, I can do that. You know, I just got to have the machinery and the time to do it." And he's like, "Okay, when can you start?" And that's kind of how it worked.
All right.
And then, oh, by the way, we have this encampment program that's going on. Would you be interested in that? I had no idea what he was talking about. Yeah, sure, I can do that, whatever that means. And so I ended up as a worker bee here, but I also was running the encampments on the weekends.
So yeah, so you were kind of like a caretaker, what we would call kind of a caretaker today, but then they gave you that extra duty of the encampments.
Well, and I think that was a way to justify bringing me on, because again, as you're getting in for the Naval Park itself, because we do wind down in the late fall and into the winter, you know, we're closed. And so there's no money coming in. And luckily for me, that between Dick Smith and Bill Geary, who was the chief engineer, they lobbied the Colonel Cunningham, who was the executive director at the time, "You need to bring this guy on." And so, you know, for $8.50 an hour, as long as I figured I can make this work, then I can make it work. And with my Navy pension, that's the only thing that, if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be working here today.
Right.
Because I always say, there's no money to be made in the museum business. You got to want to do it, as you well know.
Right. Thank you. Very true. We all do it for the love, as you said, the legacy.
And where else can you work on a destroyer, a tank, potentially on an airplane, and a submarine all in the same day?
You got it.
You know, there's no place else in the world that you can do that.
That's right, and that's the diversity of the work, as you were mentioning. And yeah, it's a fabulous place, and you got to have that nugget in you already to say that you're willing to do it because of the legacy, because of the diversity of the work.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's just a thrilling place to work when things are going well.
And you have the tedium of some of the other things that go on here that,
right.
you know.
That's true. It's very true, as any workplace does.
Yes.
Right? So when did you become the superintendent or the SupShips here at the Naval Park?
I'm trying to think the exact date. Well, I first started out as the chief engineer because Bill Geary, who was a Marine, Vietnam era Marine, physically just couldn't do the job anymore, and they needed a mechanic. So I was running the encampments while I was also the Corps chief engineer. And so I was pulling a lot of double duties. Just like all of us, the job that we were hired for, we ended up doing like 5 or 6 different jobs on top of what our original job was. because just so few people. But my predecessor, Dick Smith, I'm actually the 4th superintendent here. The first superintendent was Marvin Joe Curry, Chief Warrant Officer, Seneca Indian, and he was kind of my mentor starting here, because he was the subject matter expert on everything. He set the tours up, set the displays up, all the initial work that was done to make the ships safe for the public. He did. A lot of people take a lot of credit. Oh, I was here, I did that, I did this. Marvin did it. And, you know, and he had the knowledge. He was the kind of person who had the gift of gab, where he would get services provided because he would do a TV commercial for a company and that kind of thing. And he also used the ships as a vocational school for the reservation. So he brought a lot of the folks from the res up here and taught them electrical work, welding work, metal work, the whole thing. And Marvin was a sailor on board the Little Rock from 69 to 72. And so he had already all that base knowledge. But he was the kind of person, you know, I got a 20 millimeter gun and I need a torpedo. I'll swap you. But unfortunately, all of those records of what Marvin did are gone, or they're so deeply buried you haven't found them yet. And so he, like, again, I could pick up the phone at any point in time. Marvin, where did you get this? Where did this come from? Oh, well, I got some in my garage that I'll bring down on Monday, and we can go over it then. And unfortunately, you know, you start, again, becoming complacent with a person, and instead of, again, recording them or trying to get this information, well, he'll be around. And he ended up coming down with pancreatic cancer, and it killed him. And all that knowledge, that base knowledge, was gone. So then there was Don Slade. He was a retired Navy chief who worked for Marvin as his chief engineer, and he made it very clear he wasn't staying. You know, he was not going to be the long-term fix. And then came Dick Smith, who was, again, a sailor on board here, at a different time than Marvin was, or their time overlapped, but Dick worked in one end of the ship, and Boats Curry worked in a different part of the ship. And of course, rank structure being what it is, their paths never crossed. So, but he lobbied very hard to get this position. He was in the superintendent position for about 13 years. But he, again, made his mind up that he was going to pull the pin and retire his own self. And so I went and talked to the Colonel Cunningham again, and said, if you don't have anybody else in mind, I want the position. And he's like, you got it. And that started, I want to say, 2011, 2010, something like that. It wasn't like a monumentous day on the calendar. It's just another day. I got another hat, and the other positions that I had vacated didn't get backfilled. So, okay, fine, you're the chief engineer. What does that mean? It's the same thing it means today, you know. And so I became the superintendent slash chief engineer slash.
Were you doing encampments still at that time, or?
At a certain point, I told the Colonel, it's like, I can't do all 3 of these jobs.
Right.
I'm living here.
Right.
And which my ex-wife was quite pleased with, you know.
That's good.
Yeah, she was good. So
you were good with it too.
yeah, because I knew I was making a difference. At least I felt I was, and that's all anybody can ask. So yeah, it's been like I say, it's been an interesting journey, interesting road, and with everything that has transpired down here, in terms of, again, watching Canal Site be built, and what has happened here, you know, I saw the museum being built. I helped hang the airplane in the museum. As I always say, I lost a lot of skin doing that, which is very true. But I got in on the ground floor, and that's part of what we've done as a team, is I try to pass down as much information as I can. But also it's kind of like, have I already told you that? And if I have, stop me, you know, and we go on to another subject, because, you know, somebody's got to pass some of this information down. And I'm the longest tenured person here now, and if I'm not going to tell anybody, then
Right.
Sooner or later,
Yeah.
we all move on.
Yeah.
You know,
In one way or the other.
one way or the other. Yeah, we're all temp help.
Yes, that's
in the
right.
big scheme of things.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, and you've been a great help to me and the other people that have been brought on board, you know, over the past, say, 4 or 5 years, with your institutional knowledge. And that's one of the things that I think all of the staff will miss the most is, you know, even so it's naval knowledge, it's Little Rock Sullivan's Croker knowledge, and it's just basic knowledge of like, oh yeah, I think I saw that behind the Korean compartment. You know, you just know where things are on board.
Yeah,
you know, I'll say, you know,
it's muscle memory at a certain point.
Well, yeah. And
I remember
memory,
seeing that,
said,
but now
right?
I don't remember where I saw it.
Right.
You know,
I mean, yeah, it's just, you know, I'll say, oh my God, where are some flags? And you'll be like, oh yeah, well, we got one over here, there's one over there, there's, you know, and so I would have been searching all over the place, or someone else would be searching all over the place, but you kind of even just know where things are in various compartments on board. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you know, the Galveston class, like a Little Rock, has about 195, 196 compartments to it or something. So you've probably been into every compartment.
pretty much.
Pretty much.
Every one that I could get into.
That's right.
Some winters, that's, you know, when you're literally the only one here, it gives you the opportunity when the ship's all buttoned up, and at points in time, everyone's been laid off. Certainly during COVID, you know, we really came into being that everybody was laid off at one point. So during the winters, when there's very little going on, because you can't abandon the ships, you can't just lock the door and
Right.
go home.
Just leave
You
it
know,
and-
it doesn't work that way. We see the results of that on the Sullivans and on the Croker. You can't do it. So that was when I would literally search through some of the damage control charts. How do I get down there? How do I get there? What's inside there? And that's how it kind of started.
Fabulous. That initiative that you took to do that.
A lot of it's just curiosity.
Oh yeah, curiosity
You know.
too. It didn't kill the cat this time, huh?
Nope.
So what's one of your favorite things about being on board? The work, or a specific area of one of the ships or the sub? You know, we have a lot of photographs of you pretty much everywhere, but do you have one particular spot that you feel endeared to, or, you know, certain work that you did in it, or that really, you know, gets you excited to go into that space or anything? Is there?
Well, the mess deck on the Sullivans, that I helped set most of those displays up down there.
Oh, did you really? Jeez.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, for God's sakes.
And some of my things that are in those displays too, you know,
Yeah.
to help fill them out. That's a lot of fun. You know, honestly, it sounds silly, but even repairing the leaks on board, I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed the work of doing it because I was fixing something and I was putting my fingerprints on it. That didn't necessarily like the idea that the ship was taking on water any more than I do today. But that was being able to crawl in some of those fuel tanks that you've been into, freshwater tanks, whatever. Even trying to just search to find where leaks are. You know, it gave me an opportunity to see parts of the ship that even the crew members who lived on board didn't get to see. And so there's a lot of fun in that. But again, you know, you start becoming complacent with it and you start getting tired of it because you have to do it so much. And certainly again during the winter, I'm not getting in the water other than my feet or laying in it in a fuel tank trying to stop a leak, just like you guys do now. And it's those are the kind of things that I remember the most, is crawling in some of those spaces that you shouldn't really crawl into, because it is dangerous. And climbing in a ballast tank of the submarine. I didn't do that in the Navy. I was an aircraft guy. You know, so, but you know, you got to do it, and you can't. You know, again, I think it's just leadership 101. I can't tell somebody to do something that I'm not willing or haven't done myself. I'm not telling somebody else to climb the mainmast unless I have done it myself, or go into the bowels of the ship, or clean toilets. You know, sometimes you just got to do all the above.
Yeah, that's agreeable. So, yeah, the mess deck on USS Little Rock, some of the holds and bilge spaces and stuff, and I find that thrilling as well. And I absolutely agree with you that who knew in a million years that.
Yeah, but this was the other thing is when I started here, we didn't have a curator, so I kind of took that hat on. And my predecessor, that was not our job. We are not paid for that. Don't do it. But I can't sit there and tolerate a display case just sitting there empty. Because again, if you don't have the public wanting to come on board, oh, I was on there 5 years ago, why do I want to go back? Because there's always something that we open up. There's always something new that you put out. And that gave me an opportunity also to see things with a fresh set of eyes. You know, you go buy something 20 times and you just don't see it. But then, you know, you really spend the time and it's like, we have all these things that are behind the scenes that are in boxes and other compartments. That would fit perfect right here. And I really enjoyed doing that. But again, I didn't do anything that any 10th grader can't do. So until you came along, that we didn't have an actual no-joke curator. Because I, in terms of cataloging all the artifacts and that kind of thing, nah, that wasn't me. I put it out, and that used to happen all the time. Somebody would donate something and give it to Colonel Cunningham and say, John, go find a place for this. All right, I can do that. And off I go. And, you know, whether it was displays in the museum or what we had in the barn at the time or on board the ships, that was a lot of fun to me. I just enjoyed it.
Now, you have a motto that you use quite a bit of letting a command fail. What is your?
A senior chief would never let his command fail.
Right.
And so, you know, that's what we would call it in the Navy deck plate leadership, is you got to know what's below your feet. And that way there's nowhere to go but up. But you don't let, and you don't do something necessarily because somebody's watching or you're getting patted on the back for it. It's what you do that's in here. That's what matters. And, you know, that's one thing I'm really proud of.
Excellent. Do you have any words of wisdom for the crew as you depart over the next 9 days in a wake-up, if that's the phrase? What do you want to pass on, or for our YouTube watchers, what would you like to say about the Naval Park?
Well, it's not just the Naval Park, it's the people who, A, work here, because, again, you're working here because you want to work here. It's also the volunteers, which sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's a bad thing. It all depends on the person. But I will say this, I feel like it would be, how do I put it, inappropriate not to recognize some of the folks who have been here. You know, we've lost all the World War II era docents, and I learned so much from them. You know, we had a merchant marine that, Bob Lohman, who was instrumental in getting the Rust Bucket Monument here. He literally was one of the merchant marines making the Murmansk run across the North Atlantic, dodging U-boats. That's real. That's real deal. You had Nelson, who was a submariner, that his stories were, you know, mind-blowing. He actually crewed some of the surrendered Japanese submarines into Hawaii so the U.S. Navy could study them. And also he crewed them out off of Honolulu and scuttled them, because as part of the treaty with the Russians is we were supposed to turn them over so the Russians could study them. No, we're not going to do that. So they just sunk them, blew them up, used them as targets, so we didn't have to turn them over to the Soviets. And, you know, the stories of dealing with the Japanese sailors, because they had to show the Americans how they didn't speak Japanese, they couldn't read Japanese. What does this do? You know, and that was fascinating. It was, and all of them would talk about their services. Once you kind of got into their favor, you know, because again, most of the World War II vets just don't, well, so many of them are gone now, but you know, they just wouldn't talk about their service because they didn't think it was any big deal. You know, I just did my duty like my neighbor, or my brother, or, you know, whoever.
Yeah, that's a good story, and it kind of goes with our mission. And I will say, sir, that you have educated, you have honored, you have inspired, and you have helped to preserve.
Yeah.
And that's our mission
That's
here.
nice. I appreciate that.
Any other final thoughts?
Well, I will say, again, the people who aren't here are the ones that really contributed much more than what I ever did.
Well, after 9 days, you won't be here either, so.
Well,
then we'll
and
be
then
able
the
to
story
say that
of you
about
guys,
you.
you know,
We'll
that's
be
the
able
whole
to-
point,
yeah,
you know.
we'll be able to say that about you.
You know, I will say one of the most rewarding things that I had the opportunity to do, and that was to become an honorary plank owner on LCS 9, on the new Little Rock. I was the first aviation type, first Airedale to sail on her, which was cool.
Yeah.
And got the opportunity to bring her into port. That was highlight of my service here. But it was also one of the saddest things, and I had this conversation earlier with a former board member, is that I was one of a team of people that went to all the preliminary meetings with NCIS, the FBI, Secret Service, back for the Navy Week back in 2012 for the celebration of the War of 1812. And that set the stage for the Little Rock to come in here to be commissioned. And all the hard work that went into that period of time, and once the Little Rock was actually completed, the saddest part was that Colonel Cunningham, who did the lion's share of the work to try to get all of this stuff happen here in Buffalo, he wasn't around to see it. You know, he wasn't able to, you know, he didn't survive long enough to do it. And so, again.
Yeah, we have a really nice photo of you and Captain Brian Roach in Arlington for his burial and his funeral.
Yep.
Yeah, that's too bad. I did not know him, but I wish I could have met him. I came in shortly after he had passed. And
Yep. Because he wasn't just my commanding officer, he was my friend.
well, thank you very much, and we call you a friend as well. Okay, we call you an acquaintance, John.
Yeah, there we go.
But thank you so much. Hope for you, if you've been watching, I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit about John's background here and some of his work and what his legacy is here at the Buffalo Naval Park and will continue to be after he retires and goes off into the sunset. So thank you very much. Thanks for your support, and we'll be seeing you soon.